World Circuit Marco Simoncelli, located just a few kilometres from the Adriatic coast on the Riviera di Rimini. One of only 3 circuits remaining from the inaugural 1999 season. No less than 30 races have been completed here to date. This weekend it hosts round 7 of 12 in the 2026 FIM Supersport World Championship. In Aragon a fortnight ago, Alberto Arenas was denied Race 1 victory by just 0.2 of a second, having led the first 14 of the 15 laps. Then he led 10 laps in Race 2, when again he was denied on the final lap, this time by 0.3 of a second. Jaume Macià instead took the checkered flag and became the second rider to reach 3 race victories. Valentin de Vries is on 5, but it is still Arenas who has control of the title race. His lead was 19 points going into the Aragon round, finished it on 40, ahead of Macià on 36, de Vries on 16, and Onchu picking up just 9. And at the season's halfway mark, his advantage is now the biggest it has been at 40 points. Australian Steve English for the 2026 Pirelli Emilia-Romagna round, and Steve, Arenas after his lone retirement of the season in Most, bounced back in ideal fashion as top scorer at Coquelin Aragon.
Yeah, lone retirement through no fault of his own. He was running up inside those top 5 spots as he has been all season. So for Arenas, he's the rider to beat by quite a margin in this class because he's got the consistency, and that has been the key thing for him. When you look at his riders, there's challenging consistency has evaded Chan this season. Going back to last weekend or last time out in Aragon, wasn't even able to crack into the top 10 after receiving a Superpole penalty. If you're trying to be a championship contender against this man, Alberto Arenas, you've got to make sure you're always up in those leading positions.
Look at yesterday's Superpole session. As you said, the 3rd pole of the season for Chan On-Chu, his 7th all told and his 20th front row start in Supersport. Alberto Arenas making it a Yamaha 1-2, his 4th front row start in the last 5 rounds. Valentin de Vries taking his 3rd consecutive front row and the 6th in 7 rounds for him. But the 4th of our title contenders, Jaume Macià, qualified just 10th, leaving him with work to do here. In other news, Alessandro Zaccone matching his best Superpole with P6. Luca Maya suffered another Superpole crash, didn't have the pace though for any more than P17.
Yeah, and ultimately it's about trying to then make progress. The good thing for the Supersport class is your grid positions for race 2 are set by your 9 fastest laps in race 1. So for the likes of Luca Maya's back there on the 6th row of the grid, still an opportunity to salvage something for tomorrow's race as well.
Again, Macià hasn't qualified in the top 5 since we arrived in Europe. It shows there is a pace deficit, particularly over a single lap for Macià, continually leaving himself with work to do.
Yeah, and the worry for him is that many Ducatis that do a better job getting into Superpole. This weekend we've got Casadei on the 3rd row of the grid. We've got 3 Ducatis on the 2nd row of the grid, Ertl, Ferrari and Zaccone. And Jaume Macià just isn't doing enough in that single lap pace to be able to make a difference. It's a 40-minute Superpole session as well, so if we get plenty of time to get it that way, he just hasn't been able to do it.
Onchu fairly late to the grid here, as is his custom, but he's going to have to weave his way through. Will be starting from pole position, up to him to win a streak of victories now to bring himself back into contention at 69 points down.
Yeah, ultimately we're in the second half of the season, 69 points. It's almost impossible to see how he can make up that margin to Alberto Arenas without Arenas having quite a bit of misfortune. But he's still very much in contention for 2nd in the World Championship, and obviously for Chan, he's been in that position a few times in recent years.
Yes, as we make our way through towards the front of the grid then, the 2 triumphs lining up from row number 3, Tom Booth Amos and Ollie Bayliss. Bayliss making a good step forward in the Superpole session after relative struggles in free practice. Then an all-Ducati 2nd row of Ertl, Ferrari and Zaccone, and your front row of the grid, Chan On-Chu, Alberto Arenas and Valentin de Vries. On-Chu, our most recent race winner here in Misano, one of 6 different circuits where he was victorious in 2025. Still chasing his first win of the season. We saw a run of 5 consecutive podium finishes, ended in Aragon, as you said, failed to make it in the top 10 in either race. 69 points from the championship leader.
Yeah, that was the circumstance of that penalty, and he just wasn't able to recover from it. It was a little bit of a strange one for him, but Chan gets the pole position now, and just about to get that watch from Maria Herrera as well. So another Tissot watch for Chan On-Chu, but he'd gladly trade that for 25 points at the end of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. He's at the top of the Tissot Superpole world. I think gladly exchange that for being at the top of the World Championship instead. No doubt about the Superpole performances has too often gone missing in races this season. Alongside him then on the front row of the grid here, Alberto Arenas and Valentin Debise. Arenas top scorer at 4 of the 6 rounds this season, including the Aragon round a fortnight ago. Only 2 wins this season so far in Phillip Island and Balaton Park, but he's also been less than half a second from the winner at 5 races more, so that next victory will come. And in the meanwhile, he's only been off the podium in 3 of his 12 Supersport starts, just once in the last 4 rounds.
Holding his own umbrella down there on the grid, but holding his own every time he's out there, and doing such a good job, Albert.
Valentin Debise, podium finisher here on both the Yamaha and the Ducati in 2024 and 25 respectively. 5 rostrum finishes in 2026 so far, all of them have been race victories. But Debise back to 3rd in the championship last time out, only 2 8th places in Aragon, and having left Phillip Island 38 points back in February, 5 rounds later, at the season's halfway mark, he's now 43 behind.
I did hear that Alex Moto are bringing 200 guests in the next round we have in Italy in Cremona, and it just goes to show just how much of an impact that Supersport is making back in China.
Phillip Island P4, his best Superpole of the season. It couldn't have been better timed after 3 rounds off the front 3 rows of the grid altogether, and with the best finish in that spell of just 6th. Relatively isolated 5th in the championship, 2 podiums, but that's 3 fewer than the likes of Debise, Onchu and Massia.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where we've come into this season where we're expecting him to be a title contender, we're expecting him to be able to win a lot of races, and won one race in the red flag at Assen, but it hasn't quite been able to deliver what he would have expected.
Track specialist here in Misano, Matteo Ferrari, has recorded no less than 7 of his 13 Moto E wins at this venue, including his first done in 2019 on his way to the title, and his last in September. 2 podiums this season so far, including a 3rd place in our most recent race in Aragon. Well taken actually on the last lap, and less than a 1/3 of a second from victory. Completing the second row of the grid, Alessandro Zaccone, a local lad born in Rimini, and a race winner here in September on his way to the 2025 Moto E title. Took his first Supersport victory last time out in race 1 of the Aragon round. His best weekend in his 23 rounds today, a 28-point score, and this will be his 30th race start.
Yeah, and Zaccone did such a good job last time out in Aragon. When he had the opportunity to win a race, he grabbed it with both hands.
Tom Buthenos is on 60 points less at the halfway stage in 2026 than he was this time last year, and he'll be keen to add to his 2 podiums this season so far. 3rd places in Assen and Aragon. Has never had the best of luck in Misano though, only 3 finishes in 4 years here.
Yeah, when you look at Buthenos, the season hasn't been that bad, it's just been factors that worked against him. You look at a lot of races, he's been a contender for a podium, but he's ended up making mistakes. We've just seen too many crashes from him. The speed is there, he needs to find a way to find that consistency.
His teammate Ollie Bayliss inconsistent this season so far as well, has recorded 2 rostrum finishes, 3rd places in Phillip Island and in Most, but has scored just 21 points in the other 10 races combined. Fell from 11th place in race 1 of the Aragon round, 9th in race 2, over 6 seconds though from the podium back.
Most importantly though, 3 consecutive top 10 Superpole performances. Starting to show some of that speed on a much more consistent basis, and that's the important thing for him.
Yeah, and right alongside, just 5,000ths of a second behind his teammate in the Superpole session yesterday afternoon. Mattia Casadei will complete the 3rd row of the grid, and another Ducati of Jaume Masia rounding out your top 10. Casadei, the 26-year-old, born in Rimini, and like several of his fellow countrymen, a track specialist in Misano, scored points in each of his Supersport races here, twice as a wildcard in 2019 and 2022, then when he joined the series full-time for MV Agusta this time last year, and more podiums and wins here in Moto E than he managed at any other venue. 3 victories from 2022 to 24.
Yeah, you mentioned local born. The reason that we see so many riders from here is all the go-kart tracks filled with mini bike riders. Casadei was one of them whenever he was a kid.
Jaume Masia, 2 second places on his last visit to Misano for a 14-point score, his best result today. Matched good at the Portuguese round in March to take the championship lead, but a 6-race podium drought now leaves him 40 points behind. A back last time out, becoming only the 2nd rider to reach 3 race wins. Victoria's now at 3 different venues this season.
Yeah, ultimately for Jaume, when we turned up at round 1 and he was so fast in the first Superpole of the season, we thought, this is it, we're going to see that week in, week out from him. He hasn't been on the front row since. He's only qualified on the 2nd row once since then, and back in that 4th row now as well. And as you said, Alex, 3 times a race winner, so we know that his racecraft is good and he's able to make his progress, but you can't qualify on the 4th row of the grid and expect to maintain that championship challenge. find something in the Superpole session.
Yes, and as you said, it's not just the bike, because there's 3 Ducatis up on the second row of the grid here, all starting ahead of him. Filippo Farioli, P11, he scored at 5 of the 6 rounds this season so far, has 33 points to his name, 15 of them though from the Czech round. Did ride well here, but little reward last season on the MV Augusta, had the fastest lap of race 1 at the 2025 Emilia-Romagna round, but 2 retirements during the weekend.
Farioli's made a big step forward this year, and one of the things we've seen from that is, as you mentioned, only scored points in all but 1 round. That 1 round he qualified on the second row of the grid, so he was strong at Balaton, ended up with 2 retirements.
Simon Jespersen, top 3 practice yesterday morning, but the 4th row of the grid was all he could manage in Superpole. Nonetheless, he has been a top 10 finisher at each of the last 3 rounds, has finished all but 1 race in 2026, and scored in both races here last season. He'll be optimistic of moving forward. Federico Caricasulo, winner of the 2018 Riviera di Rimini round, hasn't won a race now in over 3 years, and it's coming up to 2 years since his last podium. His best result this season, just 9th place in Portimao, suffered his 2nd non-scoring round of the season last time.
Yeah, unfortunately for Carica, the class has moved on, and he's struggling to be able to keep himself where he's able to be in Challenger again. We know that in the past he's been a race winner and a championship contender. Those days seem a long time ago for him at the moment.
Watch out for 3 Yamahas coming through a little bit further back. 14th on the grid for Roberto Garcia, his teammate Luca Myers in P17, and Ali Mahendra lining up in 16th place. They should all make fast starts here. Since the introduction of the 2-race weekend in Supersport during the COVID-hit 2020 campaign, no champion has claimed fewer than 10 wins in their title quest. The current series leader Alberto Arenas finds himself on just 2 victories from the 6 rounds that comprise the first half of the 2026 season. Instead, he's amassed his lead through consistency. Even in his lowest scoring round of the campaign, he was on the podium for 16 points, while his rivals have all scored that or less at 2 rounds this season. Arenas has only once been out of the top 5, while Maxial has missed out 4 times, including 2 retirements, DeVries 6 times, including 2 8th places last time out, Honshu 5 times, including both races at the Aragon round out of the top 10 altogether. Arenas is on 9 podiums from 12 races, the next best rider sits on 5. Race 1 of the Pirelli Emilia-Romagna round with Alex Raby and Steve English. Steve, Arenas' title rivals, DeVries, Maxiar, Honshu, all podium finishers in Misano last season. Arenas never made the podium here in Moto3 or Moto2, but he has been a rostrum finisher at every round in World Supersport so far, and that's been the key to his title challenge.
Yeah, no reason to expect that it'll be any different for this weekend as well, and certainly for Arenas, it's just looked consistent, he's looked comfortable, he's looked confident all season, and if you want to be a title contender, that's he's one of those riders that's the latest in that path from being a really good Moto3 rider, maybe having a tougher time in Moto2 to come into the Supersport class and being able to challenge right from the start of the season. If you think back over the last 5, 6, 7 years, when you look at Domi Aguilar, the number 77 Kawasaki in this field, double Supersport world champion, Locatelli's done the same, Kuninga's done the same, and for Arenas, he just looks to replicate that step as well.
Yes, Arenas lining up alongside Honshu here on the front row of the grid. How determined is he going to be to get another race victory under his belt? He looked frustrated last time out, might have been the top scorer in Aragon, but he was keen to get that victory and he was close to both of them that weekend.
Yeah, for Arenas, he's not thinking in terms of the championship right now. He's thinking in terms of, am I able to keep winning races and keep that pressure on everyone else? He's had enough tough times in his career since he won his Moto3 World Championship that it's about making sure you're consistently able to win races. That's what we're seeing from him now in the number 75 Yamaha. Certainly for him, he's not thinking about anything other than, I want to win this race and I want to grind my competition down.
Yes, and every chance that he does that. Interesting question over the course of the 2 races this weekend. How will Valentine's and Bees get on? Because that ZX motor had no pace last time out in Aragon, struggling with the hot temperatures, struggling with balance, struggling with pretty much everything. He'll be hoping that here in Misano it's a different story, because he had a good Superpole in Aragon as well, and couldn't remain with the podium contenders. That means the championship standings, the Bees dropped back last time out to 3rd, Maxial with his victory moving back up into 2nd place. They're still 40 points behind the series leader Alberto Arenas. Honshu, your pole sitter here, starts the race 69 points in arrears.
Just heard from one of the mechanics there that on their radar it's a 50-second degree track temperature, so it's baking down there for these riders. It's going to be a long 18-lapper.
build up then to this race. Onchu and Arenas expecting to escape away in the early stages. And that's the line the Yamaha goes well. And watch out for those Yamahas further back down the grid that have qualified somewhat out of position. This is race 1 of the 2026 early Emilia-Romagna round. Now a decent start from the outside of the second row of the grid from Alessandro Zaccone. He's going to pick off Ferrari and Urkel in the run down towards turn number 1. De Biza split the Yamaha, so great start from him, although Arenas immediately coming back through around the outside at turn 2. So it's Onchu who leads the way, Arenas in second position, then it's De Biza. Great start there from Zaccone from P6.
Very quick throw in the lights as well, and maybe that caught Arenas out ever so slightly. There's been a few changes to the bikes for this year, for this weekend.
Tom Bouthamos in 7th place with Ollie Bayliss down in 9th as things stand. So Bayliss losing out on a position, and look at that from Aldi Mahendra. He's made a great start. He's into the top 10 and is now bubbling his way through on Bayliss for 9th position. So Mahendra, great getaway. Not quite such a sharp start for Luca Myers, who's still down in 17th.
6th row of the grid for Aldi to be able to do that as well. So that is very impressive for him to be able to make that jump right from the start of this race, and you can certainly see for them as they try to give themselves that opportunity down towards turn 11. Use the slippery ladder and slide his way through. And our top 3 riders that we've seen so often this season in those top 3 positions. De Biza has done well on the opening. Looks a little bit more competitive here than he did last time out in Aragon.
Oh, that's late and bold from Ferrari, and he's not the only one. I think that might have been Farioli that's come to grief there at the slowest corner on the circuit, turn 14, named Caro, and it is Arenas ahead of Onchu and De Biza as we come to the end of lap number 1.
Yeah, such a shame there for Farioli, and you've got that moment where everyone just comes down into that corner, and once it compresses like that, it's so easy to trip up over someone else, but able to skip his way through there on the number 11 of the team. Ferrari that's going to move up into the top 5.
Yeah, we saw Ferrari getting very close to the back of Zaccone as well. The same could easily have happened, but a shame for Farioli. He made up a couple of positions from his grid slots on the 4th row.
Ferrari answers straight back down in towards turn 4, but he's taken out Philip Ertel.
So 2 riders down at turn 4 on lap number 2. And Philip Ertel scampering back to his machine. That's going to release Jaume Masia now up into 5th place, crucial for the championship.
Turn 4 is a corner where you can end up just having a moment where you run a little bit wide through it to go in on into the end. You can imagine that's what happened to Ferrari.
So that has somewhat splintered the field, hasn't it? Because the gap now behind Zaccone to Masia is a second, and it's up to one of our championship contenders now to take advantage of the chaos in front of him, get his head down and bridge the gap to become a podium contender here. Arenas leads Onchu, De Biza 4/10 of a second back in 3rd.
Still needs to ride that bike back to the pits, get that handlebar fixed, and then get yourself back out there again, because there's still fastest laps at stake to give yourself a top 3 race for this.
Yes, and that will be the focus here as we make our way through lap number 2, with Zaccone pushing on to try and stick with the podium contenders. Gap to Jaume Masia is still the best part of the second. Passadei with Thanos, Bayliss, Jespersen and Josh Watley now up into the top 10, taking advantage of those 3 incidents ahead.
Yeah, decent effort there from Josh in number 7. He's the teammate to Jaume Masia, so both our black bikes up there inside the top 10.
We have 2 separate groups here. Your top 4 of Arenas, Onchu, De Biza and Zaccone. Keeping a watching brief behind. Jaume Masia still the best part of the second. We're waiting to see if he can push on. He does often have the pace advantage in the latter stages of races, but he's got to be close enough by the time we get there compared to your podium contenders.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, is to try and make sure that you're able to use your pace at those important moments. That's where Arenas tends to be very good at managing a race, and then some of the riders are able to get stronger as the race comes back into them. Tyre life and the rear tyre release doesn't seem like it's a big issue here for the Superpole riders. It's just about that front tyre, being able to manage the front tyre. It's very easy just to plough through a front tyre, because if you look at turn 8 here as a good example, how long you're on the angle of that front tyre and the amount of times that it just can wear out on the side of the tyre. So for the riders that know that 18 laps, it's very over the
New fastest second sector of anyone from Valentin to Biza, and Jaume Masia pretty much matching it. He'd already made 1.5 tenths in the opening sector of this lap number 3, so the gap now down to 7/10 of a second, and 2 seconds covering your lead 5 as Jan Onchu repays the favour against Alberto Arenas. Remember, Arenas picked up the race lead through Curvone earlier on, and now on lap number 3 it's Onchu who hits the front once again.
Such a good part of the track, and it's such a fun area to be able to look at riders. ground and take the lead.
In the background of the shot there, Tom Booth Amos making some progress. He's closed right in now on Mattia Casadei, fastest second sector of anyone from Booth Amos on this lap number 3, hence making back a couple of tenths of a second on the rider ahead of him. A look at the lap times then from lap number 3. Jaume Massiá, the fastest man out there, 1 minute 37.411, so a tenth of a second faster than the new personal best from Chan On Chu, the race leader, and the gap now from first to fifth that was 2 seconds is now down to 1.5.
Yeah, Jaume digging in on that number 5 machine, and you've seen it, as we said earlier on, racecraft's been good for him. He's been able to pick up 3 race victories. Qualifying and single lap pace has been the issue, but he's in contention for this one because he's close enough to those race leaders.
And once again, On Chu and Arenas find themselves sharing a similar piece of asphalt. They're side by side now in towards turn 8 La Quercia, and Arenas getting the job done on Chan On Chu. But so many times they've been evenly matched this season. They finished 4th and 5th in race 1 of the Australian round. They finished 2nd and 3rd in race 2 of the Dutch round, 2nd and 3rd, and then 1st and 2nd over the course of the weekend of the Hungarian round, and of course that late bust up in race 1 of the Czech round as well.
Checking further down the field as well. Philip Murphy did come into the pits. That's to try and get that bike fixed so he's able to get out there. We'll keep an eye on his lap times if he rejoins. We'll see him trying to set one of those fastest 9 laps to be able to top 3 rows that we're in the first two.
As On Chu again comes through at turn 11 on Alberto Arenas, this time lap number 4, and look at the gap that Jaume Massiá has managed to bridge, 4 tenths of a second compared to Zaccone made on this lap so far. He'd already picked up 2 tenths on him a lap ago. He's been faster, particularly in the second sector. We watch the 3 race leaders. Now Massiá visibly closer from P5. Zaccone putting a spurt on to try and stay with that top 3, but at the moment it does look like On Chu, Arenas, De Vries, Massiá and possibly Tom Booth Amos, your main contenders here. Booth Amos has had a couple of personal best laps in a row, and as I said previously, had already made up 2 tenths of a second on Mattia Casadei. Another 2 tenths made up now. He's right on his tail.
Yeah, the strength of the Triumph is the fact that it's got that longevity for the tyre, and it really is able to manage the race well. But for Booth Amos, it's about trying to find ways to get that track position. He's down in P7, he's got fast riders ahead of him, and nothing easy to pick off there.
Yeah, and Booth Amos doing a good job of riding it because he's over a second faster, or ahead, I should say, of his teammate Ollie Bayliss as we get through lap number 5, and best part of half a second faster than his teammate on that previous lap, lap number 4. So it's On Chu who leads, 2 tenths ahead of Arenas, then De Vries right on his tail, Zaccone 2 tenths back, half a second still the gap to Massiá as De Vries lunges down the inside of Arenas. That was a nicely taken move by Valentin De Vries.
Cost yourself momentum though to make that move. We'll see if they're able to claw back that time. They definitely got the 2 bike leads, but De Vries will be more than happy to get that track position.
I think he'll be more than happy just that he's back in podium contention after a tough weekend at the Aragon round last time out, where he managed to steal a place on the front row of the grid but then didn't have pace in either of the races. Here he is visibly on par with the 2 Yamahas up front.
Yeah, you can see for Chan there the brakes in turn 14 now. Quickly he jumped out of the bubble as well, pushing the bike away as he extends up in towards the braking zone. You can see he really pops up out from behind the fairing as well. So Chan's pushing as hard as he can. A lot of times you look at the really fast riders in Supersport and they're smooth with that progression and transition, but Chan, no pressures on there trying to deliver an open.
7 riders covered by 1.7 seconds as we embark on lap number 6 with Chan On Chu leading Valentin De Vries and Alberto Arenas. 4 tenths of a second, then the gap to Zaccone, who runs with Massiá and Casadei right behind. Arenas thought about a move there through turn 4, but backed out of it. And we have seen riders willing to leave their moves late if they need to, and Zaccone, one of the best examples of that, currently sitting in 4th.
I think for that one there, De Vries just was really late on the brakes and able to slide the bike on the entry, and Arenas just wasn't able to make a move. I think he was trying to make a move, but De Vries able to defend it well.
To be sliding around there, wasn't he, into La Quercia? Momentarily looked like he was close enough to On Chu, then backed out of it, then seemed a little bit wide, but On Chu now finds himself in a little bit deeper, and again De Vries carries that tighter line through 9, captures him by surprise, but On Chu responds immediately, and now has track position down the straight, and through Curvone. De Vries will put himself out alongside On Chu here, and On Chu's getting a taste of his own medicine, having made that move a few times in this race on Alberto Arenas. This time it's De Vries who does it, and De Vries has gone from 3rd to 1st, and there goes Arenas as well, incisive through turn 13, and then the slowest corner on the circuit. They all have to settle back in line astern, but the key in this lead group, Jaume Massiá now in 5th place, right behind Zaccone, and less than a second from your race leader.
1st to 7th on now to the 2nd and a half, so really haven't worked close up quite a bit. The lap record here a lot of potential left out there.
Alberto Arenas wanted track position there because he was pushing on hard on the tail of DeBees going into turn 1, couldn't get there, and then launched his attack at turn 2 instead. Nicely done from Alberto Arenas to lead on lap 7.
Yeah, you can see for DeBees though, he doesn't want to sit behind. The reason for that is he thinks that the other bikes have a little bit more potential, so he needs some track position to be able to try and defend the race lead rather than attack first. So he might try and do something down in towards turn 11 again.
First opportunity Jaume Masia has had to try and launch his attack as well as he moves to the inside of Alessandro Zaccone, and he is through now into 4th position. So it's Arenas, DeBees, Onchu, Zaccone passed by Masia, Cassidy and Uthemos rounding out your top 7. DeBees has tried a couple of times to make maneuvers through turns 9 and 10. It's not going to be on this lap number 7.
Yeah, just looking further down the field as well. Farioli is able to rejoin it. He's just up the 9th fastest lap of the race. So putting himself in a position to salvage something for tomorrow with top 3 rows of the grid.
So where will DeBees now try to answer back as Jaume Masia runs out and wide all across the curves and got through on Zaccone. To make progress, a couple of tenths of a second was the gap to Chan Onchu, immediately right back on his tail as Tom Uthemos comes in from way back on Mattia Cassidy. Cassidy will have the momentum, but of course now he's stuck on the outside. So Uthemos has timed that one nicely, and that's the Triumph now up into 6th position.
Yeah, we'll see though into the Misano corner, the last corner, if he's able to hold off that position, and Uthemos still in 6th, but the gap between himself and Zaccone now out to 7 tenths of a second. So that move, Uthemos still able to stay in the 37th, but able to use minimal time as he was able to make that line.
Yes, gap opened up, as you say, slightly with that manoeuvre. Cassidy, nonetheless, despite being relegated down to 7th position, riding the best we've seen from him this season, previous best result of the campaign, a 9th place in race 2 of the Dutch round, was also a top 10 finisher in race 1 of the Hungarian round, and that's it. He has scored points, but big points available to him here, sitting in 7th.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the key thing for someone like Cassidy. We know that he's strong around this track, but needs those results now on the number 50 machine.
Yeah, best finisher 5th at the 2025 Spanish round, Mattia Cassidy. Zaccone must have made a mistake somewhere because he's dropped 7 tenths of a second in that second sector and is now going to be passed by Uthemos for 5th, and will that open the door to Mattia Cassidy to come through as well? That's a shame for Zaccone as Tom Uthemos comes through on him and says, come with me, we'll ride onto the back of the podium contenders.
Rare that you agree with a rider saying that, but they need to latch on with Tom because Zaccone's made that mistake or had that issue. The gap now to Jaume Masia, it's over a second and you're already over a third in this race. They need to work together. If they fight each other, they work together, maybe they're able to put themselves into contention.
Particularly, of course, if the top 4 start to fight with one another. Gap starting to open now from DeBees to Onchu. This is a key phase of the race for Chan Onchu because we do sometimes see him fade in the second half of races. He's got to dig deep now. Arenas with a new fastest first sector of anyone on that previous lap. New personal best lap from him, new personal best lap from DeBees, and that's why they've gapped 3 tenths of a second to Chan Onchu.
Yeah, and for Chan, this is where you really need to be able to do your digging. But Albert Arenas, whenever he's had that opportunity to overtake riders, he has taken them. DeBees has done well to go with them, but we'll see if he's able to stick with them and try and attack them.
So Arenas, DeBees, Onchu, Masia, all covered by less than a second. Gaps up to 9 tenths now to Tom Uthemos, but Uthemos fastest of any of our leaders in the first sector of this lap number 9. So he is going to give it a real go here to make up that second. Zaccone, Cassidy, and to a lesser extent Bayliss, who got into the 1:37s last time around with a new personal best. The chance to go in that group and close down on the lead quartet.
Yeah, and Ollie doing as good of a job as he can do. Half a second down to Cassidy, maybe able to get himself into the group with his teammate Tom Uthemos. But good performance once again this weekend from Ollie. He's made a good step forward in the middle third of this season.
Yeah, important for him to do so because he had a run of 3 rounds, Portimao, Assen and Balaton Park, where he failed to score in all of them.
15 minutes in the pits for Philip Arthur. He's out there, he's got the bike repaired, and he's only out there to try and set a fast lap time to come in front of the race too, and get himself one of those 9 fastest laps of the race.
Yes, effectively 6 laps down, so obviously not competing in a serious way, but certainly for the fastest laps of the race at the moment, Masia with the fastest lap of 1:37.411 as we come on to the start-finish straight to begin at lap number 10. And the gap is 2 tenths of a second. DeBees faster fractionally than Arenas this time. And again, Onchu losing another 2 tenths of a second. Now 8 tenths of a second down on leader Arenas.
Yeah, Chan is just losing that little bit of ground everywhere. And when the margin tends to be 10th of a second is actually the biggest gap that we see between the front runners. That makes it really difficult for Jan Onchu, where he's then having to just settle and try and hold on to a podium position.
Yeah, last couple of laps, Onchu has dropped off the pace, Masia dropping off the pace as well. Buthemos and Kone still maintaining their consistency, and Buthemos made up 3/10 last time around on Jaume Masia. That's why the train looks like it's stretching out, but actually in terms of Buthemos closing down Masia and Kone sticking right with him, it looks like we may have a fight for third position on our hands at this stage.
Yeah, and Masia, Buthemos definitely going to fancy their chances, and the Tom Buthemos on the number 69 machine, he's in that proper phase of the season for a rider that knows he's got the potential to win races in the super sport class, but now needs those hard results, and Tom trying to give himself a chance of being on the podium.
Bayless moving in for the kill now on Mattia Casadei as they make their way through Carbone and then gradually slow to the slowest corner on the circuit. Carrot turn 14. Will Bayless have the opportunity to get through here? No. Casadei knows it's coming. He covers the inside, but it is a case of defending now for Casadei, who's 6/10 of a second back from Zaccone, who's pushing on ahead of him in P6.
Bayless on the number 32 machine looks so much faster, but
wants to find his way through quickly to avoid Zaccone escaping away, which is what's happening at the moment. In fact, Zaccone coming back at Tom Buthemos now, having made a mistake previously and lost that 5th position. Zaccone can't quite respond. Bayless is laid down the inside of Casadei, but he can't get there either.
yeah, and you can see there just on the run in towards turn 1, it's such a short run towards turn 1, and you've just got to give yourself a chance to be alongside into a couple of key places around this track. For Ollie Bayless, he needs to focus on turn 10, exiting Toronto well, to set the move up into turn 11 at the end of that turn.
So this is lap 11 with Alberto Rennes leading a few tenths of a second, the gap only over Valentin de Bees. Chan Onchu matched their pace last time around, but has already lost that 6/10 of a second margin, so best half of a second now. The gap between the lead trio, another half a second back to Jaume Masia. Buthemos with company from Zaccone, and then Casadei still fending off Ollie Bayless. So where is best for Ollie Bayless to try and make his straight? We talked about the mid-corner speed, but Casadei is starting to ride defensively now to hold on to that 7th place.
Yeah, this is where it's so important to exit turn 10 well. The different lines and approaches you can take through that corner sets up the momentum. We see Bayless alongside the back.
Nicely done from Ollie Bayless, as if he were listening to you, Steve. Great exit from turn 10, makes the pass at Carbone, and now up ahead of Mattia Casadei. So that's 7th place. In the meanwhile, though, the gap has opened up to 8/10 of a second to his teammate Tom Buthemos, and Buthemos has seen off Alessandro Zaccone on this lap. Zaccone losing 2/10 of a second in that sector 3.
Yeah, important for Tom Buthemos just to have that bit of a gap. He's a half a second down on Jaume Masia, but now he can focus on Masia rather than have to think about the rider behind him. You can see for Jaume Masia now, right there with Chan Onchu. Chan's being dropped. The reason for that is Alvaro Rangers just putting the fastest lap.
Yeah, new fastest lap of the race at 1:37.3. De Bees matches it, so we do have a head-to-head on our hands between Arenas and De Bees, but Onchu is now out of the reckoning seemingly for that victory. The gap is 1.3 to the race leader, a 1:37.7 only for Onchu. So lost ground to Masia, lost ground to Tom Buthemos. We have 2 fights in 1 now. 1 second covering Onchu, Masia and Buthemos for 3rd, and just 3/10 covering Arenas and De Bees at the front.
Yeah, and important to be able to try and give yourself the opportunities in these races to break away from the rider you're fighting. For Ollie Bayless, he's not going to be able to break away from Casadei with whatever the way that Matteo's going to be to come away with a decent result here today. So for Bayless, he needs to get the head down, try and just time trial their way through this. The big factor around this track is that there's so little difference between the bikes and riders that the margins are so small to be able to try and open up a gap. It does mean that if someone makes a mistake, you can punish it.
Alberto Rennes leads Jaume Masia in the World Championship by 40 points. Masia at the moment outside of the podium spots. De Bees 43 points down on Rennes, would lose another 5 if things were to stay as they are at present. Your top 4 in the championship are the top 4 in this race, albeit in a slightly different order, but no change up front. Alberto Rennes looking strong on lap 12 of 18.
And you can see for Arenas really strong in that first sector, but it all comes back to these in sector 2. So the ZX Moto in 2nd position at 3. That might just look a bit different to the Yamaha, but we'll see what their lap times are when they come across line. 37.3 is Alberto Arenas' previous lap, so he's going to match that pace again.
Lap number 13 then gets underway. It's a 1:37.216 from Valentin de Bees. Another new fastest lap of the race. Fastest of anyone in sector 2. Fastest of anyone in sector 4. That's why he's now right on the tail of Arenas. Less than 2/10 of a second between them up front. And it's also closing right up for 3rd position. 3/10 now between Onchu, Masia and Buthemos, who was the fastest of that group last time around, running the pace of the leaders.
Yeah, just at the front of the field, Arenas maintained his consistent Booth Davis doesn't tend to need too many invitations to attack.
No, should be coming through, shouldn't he? Just going to remain error-free and carry that pace past the two riders he's fighting. Xiaonan Chu and Jaume Massiel, of course, would cost both of them points in the context of the World
Yeah,
Championship.
the time's working well though, because Bayliss is a half a second faster than Castaigne. He's dropping and caught up to Sakota.
Yeah, Bayliss with a new personal best, second sector on this lap 13 as well. Another few tenths of a second gained on Sakota, so half a second now, the gap between them, and you can see that train in the background of your shot. There's Onchu third, Massiel fourth, the 69 of Booth Davis trying to attack Massiel now for that position. He's in fifth at the moment. Then it's Sakota, half a second back with Bayliss right on his tail. Booth Davis again tries to line up Jaume Massiel. This is for fourth position.
Yeah, and you can see in this group that it is all just coming together again, and the reason for that is Bayliss at the back of the group, faster than some of the riders in this group. Xiaonan Chu, 38-1 last time round. He's just no pace right now. That's about a second slower than where he needs to be. And Chan just struggling there as he is a little up to his right. He's looking, there's a big screen there that he's just checking to see what the progress is. The key thing for him is he can see there's 5 laps to go and see the fastest pit.
Yeah, train of 5 riders there. Another new personal best from Ollie Bayliss, desperately trying to join them and give himself a chance of a podium, particularly if things kick off ahead of him. Onchu, Massiel, Booth Davis, Sakota, Bayliss, all covered by 1.3 seconds now.
Bayliss needs another personal best because he's just dropped to the 10th fastest lap because Philip Urkel is out there provisionally on the second row of the grid, having just set his personal best of the race.
Yep, that's good work from Philip Urkel, running around at the back of the field, of course. 33rd position and 6 laps down following his earlier crash, but played the game nicely to get one of those top 9 fastest laps on the board. Meanwhile, back to the podium scrap. Onchu, Massiel and Booth Davis here, covered by less than a tenth of a second. These two with Sakota right on their tail. This has been another great ride from Alessandro Sakota.
Yeah, and Alan Newton can go on that tail by different lines. There, Booth Davis, very different to what you can see from Jaume Massiel. See if he's able to get himself into that slipstream, but Massiel able to square it off nicely and use the torque magic that.
Yeah, fair wobble on the exit though from Jaume Massiel. You wonder whether that might have cost him a little bit of momentum as Booth Davis tries to close him down again. Massiel doing just enough to cover it for the moment on lap 14.
Just for Xiaonan Chu as well, he's very vulnerable falling outside in those top 3 rows of the grid. The reason for that is Barrioli is heading for a fresh tyre. Luca Myers is left in fifth with a fresh tyre. So it brings up himself into the top 9 positions.
Yes, as we recover our focus to the leaders, Arenas versus Debise at the head of the field. The gap had opened up at the end of lap 13 to 3 tenths of a second, I should say. But it is just under 3 tenths as we start lap 15. Time running out for Debise to put on a spurt. 3 tenths between Onchu, Massiel and Booth Davis, and still another 3 tenths back to Alessandro Sakota, who lost a little bit of ground midway around that previous lap. So for now, everyone keeping their powder relatively dry. The main mover is Tom Booth Davis, who keeps showing a wheel every now and then to Jaume Massiel, but just doesn't have quite enough of an advantage to make his way through.
Yeah, curious to see what happens on the run in towards turn 9 and 10. The two right-hand directly the exit onto the back straight to see if Booth Davis tries something this time around. Up against Jaume Massiel and down in towards 8. A little bit too far back, but Ollie Bayliss able to make the move into 8 ahead of some good progress from Bayliss, and really what we need to see from him, but it looks like Ollie's got a problem there.
And what a shame for Ollie Bayliss, riding so well to get through on Alessandro Sakota into 6th position. We'll wait to pick up Bayliss and see exactly what happened there. Looks as though he's got back running again, so may have been a misgear or something like that. He's run off the circuit, he's lost the position, he's back down to make all of the hard work undone for him.
Yeah, he spent 4 tenths of a second down the Cassidy as well. You can see here Tom Booth Davis able to come through on Jaume Massiel, and he's going to attack him straight away, you imagine, on Chu as well. But having to lean on Jaume Massiel.
And that was really good from Massiel as well, to cut straight back to the inside, have track position, moves Booth Davis out of the way again, and then gives himself the inside for the next corner. So Booth Davis relentless on the tail of Massiel, but he just can't shake clear of it.
Yeah, and Jaume's riding well to hold on to those positions, but for Xiaonan Chu still in the low 1 minute 38s as the riders continue to set personal best. But doing what he can to try and just dig in, and 3 laps to go for Onchu.
Yeah, incredible pace here up at the front. 1:37.3 from Alberto Arenas, a new personal best. Debise matching him, but just starting to eke away a hundredth of a second here and there for Arenas, opening that margin. The gap to Xiaonan Chu now with best part of 4 seconds, and Massiel losing ground on Onchu as well. If Booth Davis wants a podium, he needs to clear Massiel as quickly as possible. Give himself a couple of laps to break that gap away from Massiel and close down Onchu. And Booth Davis realises leaders. It's now or never as he makes his way through at Manwenda on lap 16. Buthemos finally clear of Masia into fourth place.
Check the timeline now in towards turn 9 and 10.
Cover off any possibility of coming back through for Jalan Masia. Buthemos has done exactly that. Tight inside line through Tramonto, and now the speeds build up towards Kervone. Arenas and De Vries making their way through there. De Vries closing on the second sector of this lap 16, right onto the tail of Alberto Arenas. So they are nose to tail now, the two race leaders, as they make their way into Caro. They've got 2 more laps for De Vries to try and spin a surprise and make his move on Arenas and deny Alberto Arenas in the closing stages, just as we saw last time out in Aragon. More disappointment for Filippo Farioli after his earlier incident. He was already running 2 laps down, and he'll be further still now because he will not finish race 1 here in Misano. But back with the race leaders, De Vries putting on a spurt in the second sector of that lap 16. Arenas then answering back again, 2 tenths between them as they cross the line with 2 to go.
And you can see for Valentin De Vries on the 153 machine, just trying to find areas where he's able to attack against Albert Arenas, but Arenas just hasn't put a foot wrong. But it does look like in that initial phase of the corner, it looks like the ZX machine is running a little bit better.
It's De Vries who needs this win more than Arenas, to be perfectly honest. In championship terms, there's already a gap of 43 between them. De Vries can't afford to slip another 5 further behind. And a 10-point swing available to him here if he can hit the front against Alberto Arenas. It's time to throw caution to the wind for Valentin De Vries, pushing hard in the closing stages. Onchu 4 seconds back, only has 3 tenths over Tom Buthemos, so there is a separate fight boiling up for 3rd position as well later on.
Chan's doing well though to consolidate his pace. First time back into the 27th by a few laps, so finding a little bit of something there for Chan Onchu just when he has to. He's only a quarter of a second off his fastest lap of the race.
Here goes De Vries again, so fast on the approach towards Kervone. Arenas had just enough in hand this time around, and then through these slower corners at the end of the lap, it has been Arenas who has had the advantage through here, but there's not much to choose between them this time around. Less than a bike length between the 2 race leaders as they make their way off Caro. Final 2 turns of lap 17, the penultimate lap of the race. And nose to tail now between Arenas on the Yamaha and the ZX Moto of Valentin De Vries. These two set to finish this race as top 2 in the World Championship. But what will the margin between them be? 1 lap to go for us to find out. There's a 10-point swing on the line in the championship here between the leader Alberto Arenas, who could gain 5 more on Valentin De Vries, or the Frenchman who could pull back 5 instead by making the overtake in the final 4 kilometres.
And you can see for De Vries on the front end, on the brakes, the bike just moving around so much for him, but he's able to get the bike stopped everywhere. But he keeps finding a blue Yamaha in his way once he gets to the mid-corner phase. He needs to try something down in towards turn 11 and use that slipstream again to be able to attack.
5 podiums this season for Valentin De Vries. All of them have been race victories. Alberto Arenas was denied wins in Aragon on the final lap of each of the 2 races last time out. He's desperate to get back to win. Ways here, but De Vries has the momentum through turns 9 and 10. Watch for him at Kervone. That's where he's been consistently faster than Alberto Arenas, who runs a tight line through 9 and 10 to try and cover him off. De Vries will pick the bike up earlier, have the acceleration now towards Kervone. He's been closer and closer with each passing lap, and now there's nothing between the 2 of them, and De Vries will move out to the inside into Kervone on the final lap to hit the front. It's up to Arenas now to use the strength of the Yamaha through the tighter turns in the final sector towards turn 14. Arenas will move to the inside. De Vries covers it. Can he get it stopped? Yes, he can. Valentin De Vries with a majestic ride on the ZX Moto. And after a tough weekend in Aragon last time out, De Vries hits the front. One last gasp effort from Alberto Arenas at the final turn. De Vries will have the cutback. Drag race down to the line. Valentin De Vries has done it, twice passing the championship leader on the final lap. De Vries with his 6th race victory of the season for ZX Moto. Arenas defeated again on the last lap, this time by a 10th of a second in race 1 in Misano. Chan Onchu holds on for 3rd spot, and then it's Tom Buthemos over the line in 4th position. What a brilliant last lap duel between De Vries and Arenas, and De Vries will move up not only back into 2nd in the World Championship standings, but also pull back 5 crucial points on Alberto Arenas. And meanwhile, here is Jaume Masia, and what on earth has happened to him off the final turn on the last lap? He hasn't reached the checkered flag, and Masia will be scoreless from race 1.
just takes
scary
as well to be able to get himself over to the pit wall side. But Jama just cost himself that points there again. And those incidents, they can happen in that final corner. You have to see what happened on the entry into it as well. But certainly for Masia, he can't afford to give up points like that.
60 points behind now, and you were saying at the top of this show that at the halfway mark, 69 was too much for Chan On Chu. He's now 73 back, and Masia at 60, his hope's looking pretty remote as well.
Yeah, he needs to qualify that. For Jama Masia, when you've only been on the front twice in the season, it's very hard to be title contender. Racecraft is good, he did well for all bar one corner of this race to be able to try and give himself a chance to be able to fight for another podium, but instead he comes away with nothing. Jama just, it's tough when it's like that, and you don't need to be too harsh on it because Albert Arenas is doing such a good job, but Jama Masia's job is to try and win the World Championship as well, and he's the top Ducati rider in the championship this year, and he has looked to have that bonus on him, and ultimately up to this point in the season he's really over the
Yeah, and you'd said it already, Steve, that valuable points lost there by Masia, and he was already going to be losing ground to both Arenas and to V's there, but he's got himself a double-figure score.
Yeah, ultimately the scorecard doesn't lie, and when you look at the results of the season for Jaume Masia, that's the third non-score of the season, and more often than not, he's a podium threat, a top line man, but when you're giving up 60-point scoring rides, it's just so difficult to be able to keep yourself in contention.
So Masia crashing out at the final turn. You said already, Steve, you want to see the full sequence of exactly what happened before we analyse any further. Race Direction are taking a look at what they've described results under review. So it might be two incidents that they're looking at here, but certainly crash on final lap and final turn is the official wording. So that might just be a good way of talking about that final turn incident.
It is on the timing loop. You don't have a crash at turn 16 there, you have a crash effectively on the straight, and that's why it's the finish.
Yeah, I guess because it said on final lap and final turn is what was making me wonder whether there was something else that had gone on there.
It'll be exit of final turn on towards that runs the line. That's just how they'll have that section marked. So we'll wait and see what the story is there. But Tommy Davis able to come away with a top 5 finish in 4th position. Ended up just 3/4 of the second down on Onchu. Those final couple of laps, Onchu did well to be able to dig in and use the end of his tyre well to be able to hold on to the podium.
So here is Valentin de Bees making his way back in. Goodness me, what a win or bust rider he's been this season, because he said at the top of the show when he's been on the podium, he's been victorious.
He's been typical Valentin de Bees. Look back over the years, there was a lot of times where he was chasing that first win, willing to risk everything for trying to win a race, and previous to that trying to get that first podium. And Valentin has made mistakes in the past trying to override a situation.
He wasn't shy of it either, was he? He was very honest.
Not. But for de Bees, now he's got that bike in the package as well. Ultimately, I think it's quite clear to see something was wrong with the bike last time out in Aragon, because it's the outlier for his performance has been all the way through this season. This is where we've expected him to be.
Yeah, ultimately the only difference between him and Arenas at the moment is what happened in Phillip Islands. 2 non-scores for Valentin de Bees, a 4th and a 1st for Alberto Arenas, and 38 points the gap between the two of them. It's de Bees victorious in race 1 here in Misano by 1/10 of a second over Alberto Arenas, and poor old Arenas, he's getting so close to so many wins. Probably the 6th time that he's been narrowly denied this season.
Yeah, he keeps knocking on the door of that same ultimately in St. Alex, and he just is able to find that consistency, and when you look at the only non-score he has is whenever he's taken out by Jaume Masia and lost, everything else has been so good, and just constantly up there in those top 5 positions, and once you keep doing that, keep giving yourself chances.
We see Rafael de Rosa making his way into Parc Fermé. Unfortunately, he's 2/10 of a second behind the point-scoring finishers, so 16th place for Rafael de Rosa, and still chasing his first score of 2026.
And for Rafa, at least able to beat his primary rival, Tony Ferrari, by a second there to be that top Supersport champion.
Yes, teammate Ramirez unfortunately out of the race. So, here are your champions. championship standings now then. De Vries back to 38 behind, with Jaume Macià now 60 down with that non-score there. Onchu scoring the 16 points for third. Decent effort for Onchu, but we'd said it at the top of the programme, he needs to be winning race after race now. His margin is 73 points to the championship leader.
Yeah, and for Chan, he's in the fight for top 3 in the championship, and that's what he needs to focus on, trying to win some races and make sure that you're able to beat the likes of John and consistency in the second half.
So in a couple of moments' time, we'll be able to hear from your 1, 2, 3 Valentin de Vries with his 6th race victory of the season. Alberto Rennes, your championship leader by a 38-point margin. And Chu taking 3rd place, his first podium since Most.
Chan, back onto the podium from pole position. You held on there to show your nerve under some late pressure. Just talk us through your race.
Yeah, I think we did a very good job with my team. I'm very happy. I want to say thanks to them. And after Aragon, we did a good comeback, so it's very positive. We just have to work like that and improve a little bit more for tomorrow and try to see what we can do more.
Congrats on the podium.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, podium place for Onchu. To be perfectly honest, until Aragon, which I would say is more of an outlier than anything outside of the top 10 altogether, he'd had that run, hadn't he, of podium finishes, all thirds, and then 3 seconds in a row, 5 consecutive rostrums from race 2 in Assen to race 2 in Most, and he'll just be hoping that he can continue the rest of the season now in the same vein, always on the podium.
Yeah, and ultimately, I'm inclined to give him a bit of a pass for Aragon because the penalty for him was very harsh in a situation where overtaking was quite difficult in Aragon. We didn't see anyone really making that quick progress until you had to do it in Bordeaux. We didn't see anyone really making that quick progress until you had to do it in Bordeaux. Yeah, and ultimately, I'm inclined to give him a bit of a pass for Aragon because the penalty for him was very harsh in a situation where overtaking was quite difficult in Aragon. We didn't see anyone really making that quick progress until you had to do it in Bordeaux.
It's really frustrating, but of course I can learn some things, and I keep the pace that we had, and I think it was incredible weekend so far, and we will try again tomorrow, and I think my team deserves this pace and these results. Thank you.
Congrats on the podium.
Thank you.
Well done.
Alberto Rennes then with 2nd place today and doing what he needs to in the championship, because much as De Vries has had the 6 race victories, he's also had the non-scores. He's had the 2 8th places in Aragon last time out, when Rennes made up 24 points in one weekend, so he's not going to be too worried about losing 5.
Not too looking a little bit frustrated about it all the same. And, he wants to make sure he's able to win races. That's what Albert Rain's trying to do, but obviously the championship is a key thing.
6th win of the season, and that's a 4th different circuit for everyone on ZX Motos, Valentin de Vries.
Valentin, big celebrations here in Misano, and deservedly so. That was some performance for the win.
Yeah, good. It's always very fun to race here because of the Italian team. The team is 1 hour from here, so there is all of their friends that is here, also all the sponsors. So it's always a very appreciable weekend for me. And yeah, the performance today was very strong. I feel like Arenas was a bit faster than me today, and I struggled to stay with him, and then I saw the gap in the back, so I could race a bit in the back and manage to think about what I will do in the last lap, and dude, I was able to pass him, and I was not expecting him to pass me in the last turn, and I was on the limit. I took the front, but I took on the gas, and then I managed his speed, and I was able to cross the finish line first. So big up to my ZX Moto Evan Moss team, because last weekend we had some issue, and they fixed straight away all the issue we had, and straight away we are back to both back on a win. So very pleased to the job they did.
Congratulations, best of luck for race 2.
Thank you.
Exactly as you said, Steve, the team working well, finding the issues in Aragon and making sure that they don't ruin his championship bid as we come into Misano this weekend. And what an entertaining final lap it was between these two. De Vries Debise getting through on Arenas. I'd said for a couple of laps, it was through that area of the circuit that he was making the most ground. He capitalises on it to hit the front, but particularly well done to recover on this final turn.
Yeah, but so many times the front just looks like it's ready just to plough through the corner and just tuck out. So turn 4, we saw turn 8, and down even into 10, and then that last corner, he was just perfect through there to understand how you have to think of the lines.
Yeah, brilliant move from Valentin Debise to come back at him. I thought that in that final sector there, Arenas had every chance of moving through. I thought the move was going to come at turn 14. Arenas tried to surprise his rival. It didn't pay off this time.
And Debise surprised his rival there, because so often into that final corner, you go super defensive, and he left just enough space to break on the limit, and then Arenas would have to go in deeper and then cost himself that mid-corner speed. So clever riding from Debise, but it's a brave rider that does that as well, because you're willing to be attacked, and so often you don't put yourself in that position.
So a look at the fastest laps of the race then, and these are your top 9 starters for race 2 tomorrow. Debise, the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 37.216. Alberto Arenas and Tom Davis will complete the front row. Jaume Masia, despite his retirement, will have another go tomorrow. He'll be starting from the second row of the grid. Casadei up in P5, he'll be delighted with that. Came home in 6th position, his best finish of the season. And Philip Erkel will round out row number 2. Worthwhile endeavour for him to rematch and rejoin to get a lap time on the board. Third row of the grid will be Zakone, Aldi Mahendra and Chan Onchu. That was a tough race for Mahendra, coming home down in 12th, so a little bit higher on the grid tomorrow, and he'll be hoping to make some progress from there. Notable names missing out: Audi Bayliss, who could only finish 10th fastest. Remember, he started that race from 8th on the grid. And the likes of Garcia and Mayas, who'd qualified, you would suggest, out of position, 14th and 17th, are again going to have to work hard from further down the order. So, fastest lap of the race, 4th this season for Valentin Debise, his 6th race victory, and keeping us engaged with the championship fight, because he's the one man making sure that Arenas doesn't become a runaway.
Yeah, and Debise, he's ridden so well over the course of the last couple of years, and speaking to Fabio, the team manager for the Edinburgh squad, and one of the things he says is, I've got the best rider on my bike, and that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, Debise, great ride from him today to hit the front off the final turn. I suspect there are other riders who would debate that.
Tell you what, it doesn't matter if your team manager thinks that, you know how much you can ask at the weight.
Oh, that's how it works, is it? Debise onto the top step of the podium. Ahead of Alberto Arenas and Chan Onchu. Let's run you quickly through the numbers. For Arenas, we've said already, podium number 10 in only his 13th start in the class, just the 3 races where he's missed out, and 2 at the first 2 rounds. Race 1 of the Australian round was 4th, and then 5th in race 1 of the Portuguese round before that retirement, race 2 in Most. For Valentin Debise, it is podium number 20. It is win number 8, 6 of them this season so far, so he tops the winners' lists for 2026 and narrows the championship deficit to 38 points. Third place goes to Chan Onchu, podium number 36 for him in the Supersport World Championship, 73 points back. So gaps Arenas to Masia, Arenas to Onchu open up. It's Debise, the man who makes progress here this afternoon. Race 1 in Misano. The question now is whether he can go back-to-back, just as he did in Portimao and Most earlier this season.
That's the big challenge for Debise, and we've seen so many times whenever he's had that ability, and he just looks strong. The bike is working well. He doesn't make any mistakes. I think that's the big strength for Debise.
So team's representative making their way up. Debise, Arenas and Onchu is your podium. It's just about time to hear the national anthem. there is your podium trio. ZX Moto on top for the 6th time this season with Valentin de Vries, with Alberto Renes and Chan on Chu, your podium trio. They are 3 of your top 4 in the championship, and crucially the one man missing from that panorama is Jaume Macià, who crashed trying to repass Tom Brudemos off the final turn, ended up stood disconsolately by the pit wall, and a very costly afternoon for Macià.
Yeah, of course, and for Jaume, we'll see how he can bounce back tomorrow, and he's going to lead off the second row of the grid, so still going to be a contender tomorrow, but he'll be disappointed after that one.
So shortly run you through the confirmed race results and where that leaves us in terms of the championship. Chu holding on for 3rd position there, but he's got a step to find tomorrow. Some 5 seconds his margin at the checkered flag to your race winner, Valentin de Vries, and indeed that same gap to Alberto Renes, the second behind top spot. In seconds, Tom Brudemos with a strong ride to take 4th. Although he's a podium contender for race 2 tomorrow, he'll be starting from the front row of the grid. Alessandro Zaccone, top Ducati, with P5 backing up his excellent race 1 performance from Aragon a fortnight ago. Mattia Casadei, with his best result of the season so far, takes 6th. And then it's Rodney Bates in 7th. So for him, that's a 4th top 10 finish in the last 5 races. Crucial at this stage of the season on the back of 3 non-stop. Philip Erthel crashing out in the early stages, but remounting, getting the 6th fastest lap on the board, so he will have a second chance tomorrow. As will Jaume Macià, also starting from the 2nd row from Cruise 2. Riders' Championship after race 1. Valentin de Vries back in front of the non-scoring Jaume Macià. The margin is 38 points, so Renes sees his championship lead overall reduced by 2. He was 40 up on Macià, he's now 38 up on de Vries, 60 points clear of Jaume Macià, with 20 scored by Renes and Macià not scored. And here's your Manufacturers' Championship. ZX Moto victorious today with Valentin de Vries doing all of their heavy lifting this season. Renes in 2nd is the top scoring Yamaha for 20 points, and the best performing Ducati only 5th with the triumph of Tom Brudemos ahead of Zaccone. Race 1 in WorldSBK coming up next. Supersport returns tomorrow as the finale of the weekend in Misano. Two weeks on from reaching the season's equator at the Aragon round, the second half of the 2026 Motul FIM Superbike World Championship now gets underway. For the 7th date of 12, we arrive on the Adriatic coast for the Pirelli Emilia-Romagna round, our traditional June visit to the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli. Inaugurated in 1972, Misano is one of WorldSBK's 4 classic venues, having been on the calendar since 1991. It's only been missed off 3 times since, and no less than 70 WorldSBK races have been held here. Flat and compact, average speeds reach only 166 kph, with the longest straight measuring just 530 metres. So although there are some 11 braking zones among the 16 corners, this is rated as an average circuit for braking difficulty according to Brembo. The opening sector is the slowest and narrowest section of the track. Speeds then build around the middle of the lap, but the fastest recorded at the speed trap is only 289 kilometres per hour. Misano's famous decreasing radius corners dating back to its switch to a clockwise direction